Hello everybody and welcome to my guide on how to master the power of the dragons. We will specifically be focusing on the dragon communion spells and how to use these to effectively carry you through the game. Now keep in mind there's a version of these at all stages of the game, so whether you're early, mid, or late, there will be dragon incantations you can use, and you get the dragon communion seal really early, so this is going to make for a really powerful build at any stage of the game. So first off, what are the best dragon communion incantations? The answer is all of them. They are all so damn good when you have the right setup, because the build setup is somewhat universal, so it is more about choosing the right one for the right job. Here are all the different incantations. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm currently doing and using as a setup in New Game Plus 3 that's been progressing through the DLC pretty well, and as a pure incantation user with virtually no weapon supplement. I am literally just using dragon incantations just to see how far I can go at this before needing to supplement. I use Dragon Maw, Dragon Claw, Ghost Flame Breath, Borealis Miss, and either Agiel's Flame or Theodorix's Magma. Each of these has its own use, and honestly, some have overlapping use, but I love using them just for the cool spell effects that I don't really care. So I like to switch it up just because it's fun to just use them all. Alright, so first ability I use is Dragon Maw. This one's really good on a single target, especially if you can sneak up on somebody. Also, it is a little slow, so be careful. You run into some awkward situations where you try to do it and then they roll at you and then you both just end up missing each other. But you can see here, bam, 9,300 damage when I put a couple buffs on. I think I had Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength on when I did that. And here you can also see that it poise breaks really solidly. Look at this. Just knocks the dude on his ass. And then guess what? From there, you can just keep chaining it to kill all kinds of stuff. It's super good. So then Dragon Claw I use if enemies are a little bit faster or they're a little bit more spread, because the radius of this spell is a little bit wider. It also has a follow-up attack, and this also is going to poise break things. It's going to throw people on the ground, and it also does a lot of damage. It's super duper sweet. So for Ghost Flame, Agiel's, and Theodorix, I really just switch between these again because they're just cool. They all effectively function to serve the same purpose, where you're going into a hallway to fight an enemy, so they're funneled, and then you can just blast, and they don't really have a way to get out of it, or to roll at you and stuff like that. It's a really good AoE clear for really dense packs of enemies, especially if you catch things off guard. Also, Ghost Flame is going to be a absolutely amazing boss killer because it inflicts frostbite on things, so you're going to be spamming this on bosses. Now, another note on Ghost Flame and Borealis Miss, why I put both of those in here. The reason why I actually included those two and they overlap is because Borealis Miss is just a lesser version of Ghost Flame Breath that you can get in the base game. They both do the exact same thing, but with a different effect, but Ghost Flame does a little bit more damage. It costs a little bit less FP. So, but you don't get it until the DLC, so I went ahead and put them both. Another good one is Ezek's Decay. If you want to go for some type of Rot build, you could use the, I think it's called Lord of Rot's Exaltation, where, whenever you proc Rot, it'll increase your attack power by 20%, so that's pretty solid. I'm not, the biggest fan of Scarlet Rot, mainly because, after you get it on something, it's just so slow to kill them. But it is an option as well if you want to do it. Honorable mention, Bale's Tyranny. Yeah, damage-wise, it does do a lot if you stack a bunch of buffs, but honestly, the main reason to run this is because look at this. It's glorious. Look at this. Looks at damage, alright? Alright, and then when it comes to just regular Faith incantations, Golden Vow, Hellish Abriri, and Flame Grant Me Strength are going to be what you're going to use and what you're going to get the most value out of buff-wise that are going to increase the damage of all of these other dragon incantations. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and hop into the build setup. So the first thing I want to talk about is an item called Rockheart. This is a new item in the DLC that turns you into a dragon. There are two versions. The one that we want is the one you do not get from killing Bale and doing the Dragon Priestess quest. You get this by going to Shadowkeep, grabbing a painting, then going to Jagged Peak, and then finding this spirit guy on a chair, right? So keep in mind that you use the item to turn yourself into a dragon, and then every time you activate the heart while in the dragon form, it's going to increase your dragon communion damage by about 20% for 60 seconds. But a fair warning, your defenses will be absolute crap when you put this on, as you have to be naked to use it. It does give you some poise and damage negation, but it is nowhere near enough to justify the gain, unfortunately. If you're in a base game run, I don't think it's a bad option. You could probably make it work. But in New Game Plus 3, I pretty much just stopped using it because I was just getting one-shot by everything, and that was even with using Boiled Prawn, Dragon Crest, Great Shield. The moment I put on armor again, everything was fine. So, yeah. Alright, so you're going to want to get the Dragon Communion Seal as your seal. This is going to be able to be gotten in the very first part of the game. Preferably, you're going to want to have one in each hand. It will give you another boost to your Dragon Incantations by doing that. If you aren't able to get two, then the Godslayer and Erdtree Seal are going to outscale at high levels of Faith, even with the 15% damage buff. But that wouldn't be around till like 70 or 80 Faith, so it's not really that relevant anyway. You'll be able to use the Dragon Comedian Seal for a very long time, and you can get it very early into the game. So, you know, that's the cool thing about this build, is this is a early, mid, and late game build. You can do Dragon Incantations all game long. So, you know, keep that in mind as we're going through this. And, yeah, and also by the time you even get to the point where it's 70-80 Faith, you should be in, like, New Game Plus anyway, so it's kind of whatever. For Talismans, it's pretty situational to what you're doing. Roar Medallion's really solid because you can affect multiple different breath attacks. It gives you a 15% damage increase to breath attacks and roar attacks, so it does impact Grail's Roar, so that's pretty cool. Another good one is Blue Dancer Charm. So if you're using Rockheart, your equip load is going to be like 0 because you won't have anything on, you'll be naked. That'll give you an extra 15% physical damage, and that's really good for Dragon Maw and Dragon Claw specifically. So if you're running around not doing anything, like a boss or something where you don't need a whole lot of damage resistance, I think Blue Dancer Charm is pretty solid. The other options include things like Scorpion Charms that'll increase a specific elemental damage type if you really are favoring like Agile's Flame, you know, Borealis Miss, etc. depending on the kind. They have one for each type, whether it be Holy, Fire, Magic, Lightning. Now, when it comes to the Canvas Flock Talisman, I'm not really a big fan of that. It only gives an 8% boost, so I don't really use it. Talisman of Dread is pretty good with Theodorix's Magma. However, Agile's Flame is just fire, so be careful about that. It is specifically just Magma. Beloved Stardust is pretty good. You get this on the Ymir quest line. It boosts your incantation speed, so I really like it, especially, again, when running around in combination with Blue Dancer Charm, because it makes your Bite attack, or your Dragon Maw go off faster, as well as your Dragon Claw go off faster. And then in addition to that, Blessed Dew Talisman is pretty good because it gives you a FP restoration tick by tick, and that's really nice when you're running around just to get your mana back because you will be mana hungry. For bosses, you can do things like Lord of Blood's Exaltation, Kindred's Rot Exaltation, stuff like that, because you can use Easy Decay. You can utilize your High Arcane to proc Bleed, as well as just get a weapon with Seppuku on it, so you can proc Bleed on yourself to get that, to get the Lord of Blood's Exaltation, because both of those are going to affect your incantations, which is very nice. So, but that's only if you're really going for like a one-shot build, if you really just want to stack buffs. For armor, ultimately it's up to you and what you like, if you want to be able to roll faster, slower, etc., and whatever your equip load is. But I recommend the Rakshasa set. This is going to give you a damage boost. It also has a decent defense. It's not like the best in the world, but when you also factor in the damage boost, that's nice. It does increase how much damage you take, so you do got to be careful when you stack that on top of like Hal Shabriri and then like a Scorpion Talisman and all that. So, definitely be careful about that. In the head slot, though, I would recommend either using the Silver Tier Mask, as it will increase your Arcane by 8, or the White Face Vari's Mask, because that will give you a 10% damage increase if you proc Bleed. So if you are going the route where you want to proc Bleed or something like that, that's going to give you another 10% damage boost. And then alternatively, this one's pretty good universally across all builds, is you can get the Black Dumpling Helm and then use Hal of Shabriri to proc Madness on yourself, and it'll give you that a 10% damage buff for about 10 seconds. So that's not bad either if you're just looking and talking about like stacking damage buffs, right? All right, now as a backup weapon, I would recommend that you pick one weapon, but when it comes to like what to put your stats at for it, just make sure that you do like whatever the minimum is to wield the weapon. And then if you have some extra points left over after you get to like level 150 or something like that, as long as you have like 55 arcane, 40 strength, you kind of want to stay in that ratio. So it's going to limit your, and then you also want to have a high vigor on top of that, and then you're also going to need to have a decent mind on top of that, and then you're also going to have a somewhat of some endurance on top of that to be able to spam stuff. So when you think about all these stats you need, you're not going to have a whole lot to pump into dex or strength. So you really just want to choose a weapon and then rely on the special attack of that weapon. So going something like Blasphemous Blade, that since we have higher faith, our special attack is going to do more damage because of that, will work really well. And it also gives us a healing effect, so even if we're not using it for damage, we can use it just to get health back. Or if you're doing a dexterity thing, you could just go bleed, since we're going to have a high arcane, and you could just get something that has a good bleed special attack on it. So it'll deal a nice, good amount of damage. So for the Spirit Ashes, we want to use Mimic Tear and Black Knife Tiche. So Black Knife Tiche is going to put a nice 10% burn on it, and then Mimic Tear is going to just be you and copy everything you do, so help you spam Borealis Miss, help you spam Ghost Flame Breath, or whichever incantations that you are using, which is super nice. However, I will say this, make sure that when you summon it, you might want to put either a wide array of incantations or a weapon on it, because the Mimic Tear has a tendency, when it only has like a breath attack, to just kind of stand around. So the more stuff you give it to do, the more it will do. I've been doing like some boss fights, like the Mimic Tear will literally just stand there and watch, unless I give it like a array of things to do. So yeah, but those are going to be the best summons that are going to help you out. In New Game Plus, most summons just die anyway. So, but these are going to be the best ones, especially if you're just doing your first playthrough and first run. So while I do think that ultimately using dragon incantations and dragon community incantations are best used in supplement to a build, at least with the dragon community ones and breath attacks specifically, it is extremely fun to just make a build around them and just spam them, because there's so many. I mean, Dragon Maw, Dragon Claw, it's just super fun to use. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it. Like, subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.